Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Well, Russ and I are both happy because both of our teams have advanced to their respective leagues championships series. We've got 2 game 5s in baseball tonight and tomorrow night. San Diego and LA tonight. I was looking up the pitching matchup, Russ. That Yamamoto versus Darvish, so that's a good game 5 matchup.
Everybody in Japan will be watching too.
Yeah, and in game 5 with Cleveland, Detroit, Skubals pitching for the Tigers, and I know I'm happy about that because that'll mean he's going to be probably limited to 2 starts in the ALCS against the Yankees, and he's been lights out this year. But all right, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, one other thing. So no matter what, people in Japan will have some of their frontline starters still to watch because Senga is going to start a game too. So
yeah, well, for how long? 10 pitches?
No, longer. He's on the comeback trail, Mike. But he did go longer than 10. He went 40. So now I bet you he can go like 75.
What did he go? 2 innings?
Yeah, 2 or 3. Might have gone 3.
Okay, well, that's not bad.
No, I think he went 3 actually. So anyhow, I want to mention I've had some discussions. I went to a Flyers event yesterday where I got to sample food and merch and those kinds of things. And inevitably, the Phillies came up in discussion. And I would just say this. For all the blame that's going around, and look, you know I'm a Mets fan, right? But I'll eventually write about the Phillies. But I have to tell you, for all the blame that's going around about Rob Thompson, I would put the blame on Dave Dombrowski, and here's why. The Trey Turner contract is going to age horribly. It's already not looking great. You already looked at that team and said, well, when you got Estevez at the deadline, and that's it to bolster the bullpen. The Mets got 3 bullpen guys. Now, granted, one was nothing in Brazovan. But Matan and Stanek have been pretty good. Good enough to get the Mets by. That's the big thing. It's worked for them.
Yeah, and you add that to Diaz.
You add that to Diaz, and you get Peterson now in the bullpen because in a short series you could use him. Right. And all of a sudden they're deeper in the bullpen than the Phillies were. That's a big issue for the Phillies. And I also feel like the Phillies bench was nowhere near as good as the Mets because they don't have anybody to call up. And that's a product of Dave Dombrowski. I mean, the Mets could call up Acuna, and maybe he's not going to get a lot of hits or any hits, but he's really good at running the bases. He's really good in the field. So if nothing else, they had that to add to already Bader and a bunch of other guys that could play the outfield and are pretty good as far as utility outfielders. So those things are what I would blame Dombrowski for. And Rob Thompson's gotten to the playoffs twice. I don't know if another manager is going to be able to do anything with the same group, but you got the same GM, and that's what I would change. And if you want to bring in a different bench coach to say to Rob Thompson, you're next or whatever, that's fine. Yeah. That could change the dugout a little bit. But I met Thompson recently, listened to him. He's a pretty sound manager, and I watched it. Yeah, you could blame him on not bringing in Sanchez or Wheeler, but otherwise he didn't make that many mistakes. Not enough to say he lost the series. The Phillies got a win. They got 1 win.
Well, it was funny because on both NL and AL, they were talking about, who do you think the networks are rooting for when it comes to San Diego, LA? And I'm like, of course they're rooting for the Dodgers. They want Dodgers. They want Dodgers, Mets. They want Ohtani.
Dodgers, Mets would be great for them.
Think of it. It's a no lose for them. If the Yankees beat Cleveland or Detroit, I mean, that obviously if the networks don't want the Yankees in there for ratings purposes. But if the Yankees beat Cleveland or Detroit, then it's a no lose for them if it's a Subway Series New York or New York LA.
Well, it's a little bit of a lose. If you remember, the last Subway Series in 2000 was not a ratings bonanza,
which is surprising.
I know, but maybe baseball's changed and people have changed since then. I would like to see what it would do again, but the first time it wasn't a bonanza.
Yeah. The other thing is,
I'm sure people in Buffalo would watch because they've got nothing else to watch.
Well, hey, they always watch the Stanley Cup final because their team is always out of it. Now the other thing was with the Yankees is the fact that you say The game has changed, and now with starters only going 4 innings, and the stopper starter, the linchpin number one. Well, this playoff has proved that the linchpin number one starter is alive and well and very valuable, because you look at Skubal with the Tigers, and he's dominated. And Cole, even though he had a rough outing in game 1, they sort of signed that off on the extra rest that he had in between the end of the season and then whatever. I mean, maybe that's just a ridiculous excuse.
And his healing, he was always going to get better as this season went on. He wasn't the best last season. We know that.
What he did. Well, he had a great
2 years out from surgery is always when that guy gets better, and I felt like he was going to get better this year at some point.
Yeah. But with Cole, it's like, he was dominant yesterday. 7 innings, and I think, I'm not saying the Yankees are going to win, because I don't think any of my teams are going to win until they actually win. So, but I think because they have him, and Rodon, I'm still a little, questionable about. This is the thing I don't understand. Did Anthony Rizzo go to Lourdes to have his 2 broken fingers repaired? Because supposedly he's going to play. He'll be on the roster for the ALC.
You just tape them together and you play. Like, that's it.
How are you going to swing the bat with 2?
You can swing the bat. You just can't field. Come on, Mike.
Jesus,
not everybody's you.
Oh yeah, no, okay. I'd rather have Oswaldo Cabrera with 10 healthy fingers.
I'll take Rizzo swinging mostly one-handed. I would. But we should give Bill a minute. He could give the other side to the Phillies. Bill, I just said, after talking to some people yesterday at the Flyers get-together, and just in general, I would blame Dombrowski more than I would blame Thompson. And if you want to bring in a new bench coach, fine. If you want to shake up the dugout a little. But I'm not putting it on Thompson. But I don't know about you.
No. Listen, you had, really, it was a failure. The bats, as happened in the final 2 games of the NLCS last year. There's holes in the lineup. Most of the guys you can pitch to, and they're over aggressive. So a lot of those guys, you don't have to throw them a strike. It's a little different during the playoffs, when really every pitch at every location is just super focused in. You're not so much challenging hitters. That was a big piece of it. Obviously, they couldn't hit other than a couple of innings in game 2. You guys were just talking about an ace starter. Well, look, Zach Wheeler gave him 7 innings of shutout ball, 1 hit, and no ball off the infield. But
right,
they had to go to the bullpen in the 8th inning, and 2 guys who'd been all-stars. They'd been lights out the first half of the season. Stram, and Hoffman, they were gasoline, and neither guy ever really kind of got it together as the series.
No, Hoffman definitely didn't.
So your bullpen can't get outs. They turned it over the bullpen in game 3, rather in game 1, and they couldn't close it. They had the 1-0 lead. That Suarez, who really had nothing, he was just finessing his way through 4 1/3 innings. So you're not hitting, and you have no bullpen, and you're not going to win. Period. And the Mets got hot at the right time too. So much of winning, and I don't care what sport it is, but you have to peak at the right time.
Yes.
So you could be the best regular season team, and if you're not peaking in the postseason, it's not going to matter. So,
all right, let's get the show started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, October 11th, 2024.
I am Bill Meltzer.
I'm Russ Cohen from SportsAllergy.com and NHLDraftBuzz.com.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and I always peak at the right time. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. No, never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Let's not go any further with that.
No. We don't want to know.
Stop, ladies. Stop. Okay. So we are. Well, today would be a week into the regular season, even though it was only 2 teams that started in Prague a week ago. The NHL schedule is a bit weird because there are some teams that haven't even played yet, and there are some teams that will tomorrow be playing their 4th game. So It's a little bizarre.
I noticed one thing, Mike, because we're going to talk about these percentages later. There are a few teams that haven't played yet that have like a 49% chance of not making the playoffs because I guess strength of schedule, even though they haven't played a game yet.
Well, what's his? I heard this. I want to know what Buffalo Sabre who offered Bob Dylan a ticket.
We don't know. Nobody's figured it out.
Okay, I heard a Bob Dylan reference, so I didn't know what it was in reference. Like at
He
the
got
arena.
offered a ticket in Prague because he was playing in Prague. He ran into somebody from the Sabres in the elevator. I would just like to know who on the Sabres actually know who Bob Dylan is at this point.
Yeah.
Well, we know Jonathan Bernier doesn't know who Nelson Mandela is, but okay, sorry. Okay, so sorry, Jonathan, you're never going to get past that one. But no, it's only a few games into the regular season for most of the teams. Some surprising starts and some surprising struggles. That'll be the theme of today. We'll start with the struggles right here in Niagara River City. The Buffalo Sabres are now 0-3. It's not a sin to lose to the New Jersey Devils because the New Jersey Devils are pretty damn good. They lost to Toronto there, but whatever. But last night in their home opener with their brand new scoreboard and their brand new roof and the same old Sabres. And, things were supposed to be a little different, Bill, because, they bring in Lindy Ruff. Ruff is, going to hold them to more accountability, and I'll get into that in a second. But right now, you look at what Kevin Adams did during the summer. And by the way, Kevin Adams was booed by the fans when they introduced him.
I don't blame him.
I don't blame. Well, but this is the thing, and I've said this all summer, writing in the Hockey News about the Sabres. They scored 296 goals 2 years ago. Last year, they brought back the same team, everybody, and they scored 50 goals less. Why? Because Don Granato wanted to play more responsible two-way play because they had given up 300 goals against and missed the playoffs by a point. They lowered their goals against by 50 goals, around 50 goals, but they also lowered their goals for, which means they couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. So what do they do in the offseason? They buy out their third leading goal scorer in Jeff Skinner. I understand why. $9 million salary, smaller player, speed declining. I get it. They didn't replace him. They expected as 19-year-old Zach Benson, JJ Peterka, a healthy Jack Quinn, maybe Yuri Kulich, all these young guys. But that, you need to add something, Bill. They didn't. And now 3 games in, they've scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
And they've lost all 3.
Yeah. And over the course of a long season, I'm going to put this, it's a general observation, right? You're going to have weeks where nothing goes your way, where you don't look very good. And I'm talking about teams that go on to make deep runs.
Right.
But you take a Buffalo team that's been in rebuild forever, right? That really, you brought Lindy Ruff back to try to recapture an old identity, right? An identity from a past era.
From yesteryear.
Truly. And, I think that although the team really, another year out of the playoffs, right? I think as long as there's progress and feel like you're finally coming out of this, I think it would be acceptable to Sabres fans who've been more than patient, right? But
Bill, I don't think it's acceptable. I think they're going to.
Well, maybe Bill means if they had a season like the Flyers, where on the last day they get edged out.
Right. Well, that would be at the end of the year. You know what? Yeah. You're right on the cusp. You know, we can stare our way out of this a year from now. Right. I mean, it was you have to make the play. You have to come damn close.
If there's growth, if all of a sudden you see Levi and Luukkonen working well together, they have great years. Owen Powers emerging, Byram has a good year, all this. And they just miss. Sure, if they take a step back from what happened last year.
I agree. No, I agree completely. And
I don't think anybody's safe.
And you cannot have a year where you're buried out of it, and all of a sudden you make one of the little late runs when there's no pressure on you, and so some guys who've been underachieving all year suddenly start scoring, and you delude yourself into thinking, okay, well we had a bad start, bad first half. We're finally turning the corner. We like where we're trending. You cannot do that again.
Now, Russ, they in 2 of the 3 games, they've like Markstrom stoned them blind in the opener, and then last night, it wasn't Darcy Kemper in net. It was the ghost of Terry Sawchuk combined with Jonathan Quick in his prime. Because he made 32 saves. He stopped McLeod on a penalty shot. He stopped breakaways, and the only goal was a shorthanded goal by Alex Tuck. I didn't hear the 3 stars, but I'd be stunned if he wasn't the first star in the game. It was 1-0 after 2 periods. Kopitar scores 13 seconds into the 3rd period, and the reason I bring this up is Kopitar had the natural hat trick, 3 goals in the 3rd period. The second one, the game winner, was a result of a two-man advantage that turned into a one-man advantage when he scored the goal, and it was caused by Matthias Samuelsson slashing the stick out of LA player's hands. And after the game, Lindy said, I quote, "That was hockey suicide," meaning it was just a undisciplined Carroll, and he called out Samuelsson by name, which Don Granato probably never would have. I don't remember last year him ever calling out somebody specifically.
Well, Lindy's got nothing to lose. He knows he's probably a 1-year coach.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if they miss the playoffs, it's not inconceivable. I'm not predicting this, but it's not inconceivable that Terry Pegula says, wipe the slate, like by Kevin Adams, by Lindy Ruff, thank you, because Seth Appert's your new head coach, and then you can find a general manager, and there you go. I don't know. I mean, here's
what I've been listening to Sirius. I didn't watch any of the Sabres, saw some highlights. Here's what I heard. Sabres look big and slow, so they got bigger, but they got slower.
I don't think that's accurate.
That's what I heard.
I don't think that's accurate. I don't think
they got. Let me finish. This is.
I'm sorry.
So maybe you don't think they're slow, like league slow, but if they're slower than the other team, then that's something. So I think maybe that's what they're talking about. You look at the goaltending. Neither guy has shut the door. So if you want to look at that, you don't really know who your number one is because they've already gone to both of them.
Yeah.
It's conceivable that you have 2 1Bs there and a below average defense, and if they do, then they're going to miss the playoffs.
Okay, it's everything you said is possible. I don't agree with the evaluation that they're slow because McLeod is faster and Lafferty is a very good skater, and their bottom 6 got a lot faster. Now, where they may have not gotten fast is their top 6 because they still have Thompson, they still have Tuck, they still have Dylan, and Dylan Cousins is a pretty good skater.
He's a pretty good skater.
Yeah, but
nobody's a burner though. None of those big guys are burners.
No, I mean Quinn has got pretty good speed, but he's coming off an Achilles injury. Paterka is a good skater. Benson's a good skater, but
well, yeah,
it's 3 games. That's where I'm saying I don't think that they are a slow team. I think they're a pretty decent skating team.
Yeah, I just think in watching Buffalo a handful of times, they have guys that can skate.
Yeah,
I think sometimes they don't play fast enough though.
They don't process.
That's what I think they're talking about. Yeah,
they don't. Maybe
they
don't
slow because of all of it.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe they don't process, and that could be the fact that they're learning a new system under Ruff. That might take time, but as and we'll get off the Sabres after this.
By the way, taking time. We talked about this off the air. So and the percentages are never 100%. Obviously, when you look at these things, but it's bad when you're 0-3 and you're 59% chance of missing already.
But
just to show the difference. A 1-1 team in the Penguins are 9% better of making the playoffs, even though they're probably not going to make it either. But just to show you,
right? But this is the point that I made with you on the phone, and this is not encouraging Sabre fans. Last year, they started Devin Levi in the first 4 games because they wanted to see if he could be the number 1 starter. They went 1-3 in the first 4 games. they could not get to 500 until March. They had some stretches where they were successful, but it was always like win 2, lose 1. You're just hovering there, and then by March they finally got to 500. And this year they've dug an 0-3 hole, and it's not, you say, Alex Tuck in the locker room said, "Oh, well, there's 79 games left." Yeah, but you've got to win 4 in a row to get over 500.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
No, no, for sure, and you don't want to. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're in December and you're already scoreboard watching.
Right.
Oh, we gained nothing tonight, right? You win one, the teams you're chasing, also won that night, so you gain nothing. That's why it's so important to at least hold your own early on, so that you're not chasing from the
beat NHL 500 at least.
Yeah.
Right. Now the surprising on the positive side, and maybe we could have anticipated this. The Utah Hockey Club, which apparently the fact that they don't have a name is driving some people crazy, which, I mean, get a life if that's a problem. My God. But they're 2-0. They opened up with two home games to start, which maybe scheduling wise is a good thing because you take advantage of the excitement at the Delta Center. And apparently, even though Salt Lake City's a dry town, they sold $200K worth of beer at the game. But they beat the Blackhawks and they beat the Islanders 5-4. So, there's some excitement there, Bill, but maybe they're operating on just vibes. And I'm using that from the political perspective here, vibes, but vibes fade like in politics.
No, for sure. I mean, listen, they're the Coyotes in different uniforms, Well, first of all, I kind of like the Utah Hockey Club thing in a way because it's almost like a European thing,
Right.
Fine, almost a soccer thing too. Whatever.
Yeah,
it's fine. I mean, I do remember in the past their Coyotes predecessors when they were going through. It was 1 year in particular where the league was taking them over, where they were picked last in the conference by everybody. And they just played with no pressure all year. And they actually had a pretty darn good year because they're kind of playing with house money, right?
Was that the year that they made the conference final against the Kings? It was like 2012 or 2014, I think it was.
Yeah. I think they made it a totally unexpected run. And then, of course, then they crashed back down to earth again. There's talent there, There's talent on their roster. Do you look at them on paper and go, this is a playoff club. This is a team where they're playing against a team that you're figuring as being a higher level team, and if they don't sneak up on them that night or the other team gets outworked, they're going to win. No, they're still kind of at that level, but they're a team that you can go a little bit of ways sometimes by through energy, through vibe, through work ethic, through whatever. And you can hold up that way for a while. So I wouldn't be shocked actually they get off to a pretty good start. And maybe if they not beating the Islanders is one thing, right? Beating the Blackhawks is one thing. But I think when you get a game against let's just say Colorado, right? Just to name the team, and they happen to win that night, then all of a sudden, some people sit up and take notice. Hey, you got to come ready to play them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun. AJ Perez, my buddy, also the only goalie to ever stop me on a penalty shot. It is my only penalty shot, but whatever. In a media game, he pointed out that only 11,000 seats count towards their attendance because there's 5,000 seats with obstructed view, and then they overflow. They had massive overflow. So at least, I feel bad for the people with the obstructed view, but, eventually that'll get corrected.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how the hell they're going to correct that unless they knock down unless it's like the old odd in Buffalo. Because remember, for those people in Buffalo, you had one end of the arena that had like 30 rows, okay? And then the other end of the arena had 4.
Yeah.
And then that's where they had, it was bizarre. The roof was even, but that's where they had the press, the corporate boxes and the press boxes. It was on the one side and they only had room for 4 rows of seats underneath the corporate boxes.
I do want to point this out. I see a tweet from Stefan Rosner, and I'm going to only bring it up because Dan Petru is coming on the show next week, and he could try and beat me up too about the Islanders. But my point was, and Bill, you don't know this, when I was asked what coach will be fired first, I said Patrick Waugh, and I said the Islanders won't make the playoffs. That was my hot take. Well, already today, how many days are we into the season? And Patrick Waugh had a get together and a chat about accountability in practice on the ice. If you have to do that this early on, it's a long season for Patrick Waugh.
Was he having that chat with? Was he having that chat with Pierre Engvall? Oh, excuse me, that was right. That he was in Bridgeport. That's right.
I'm just saying, it's not, things are not rosy on the island. They're not.
No, and please, it's like, I mean, I bring that up in jest, but Bill, 1 year after you sign a guy to a 7-year contract and he's in the AHL,
it's I mean, the Islanders do. Yeah. Far be it for me to question Lou, right? But
I will. Yeah. I'm Italian. I can do it.
but the Islanders just seem to do any number of head scratching things. I didn't think Patrick Waugh is the right guy for this group anyway.
No.
So and secondly, I look at the group and I haven't really seen them get better the last couple of years. In fact, I see them going backwards, right? So you have all the guys who hold over, and they hold over the same guys kind of forever, right? Like Casey Cizikas, how old is he now, right?
Yeah, he's as old as time, man.
Matt Martin, Clutterbuck, Brock Nelson. Yeah,
Matt Martin's not on the team yet.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah. Wait. And wonder what Dennis Seidenberg is up to right now. He might be on speed dial. But
I have Tommy Albaline on speed dial.
Tommy's finally too old, and he's not going to drive from New Jersey to Long Island. He only would drive from New Jersey to New Jersey.
Corey Schneider, step on down. Okay, this was hilarious. As soon as I saw this, I'm like, there is a titanic tug of war going on between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers over Raphael Lavoie. And so get this. Raphael Lavoie was placed on waivers, and I don't think it was 3 consecutive days, but it was this week. He was placed on waivers by Edmonton when they cut down to 23.
Yeah.
He was claimed by Vegas. Okay. So then Vegas, I believe the next day, put him on waivers. And Edmonton claimed him.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Vegas may have said, I know. No, Edmonton could at that point have put him down in the American Hockey League. They didn't have to put him on waivers again, but they did. Right. And then Vegas claimed him and then they put him in the American Hockey League. So I don't know if like Jeff Jackson or, it's Stan Bowman. So, he knows how to waste money. But I don't get it. It's like, so, is it the fact you didn't want to send him down to Bakersfield? But now he's in Henderson, and
I just hope they called the equipment guys and said, "Don't bother making a jersey for this guy."
Yeah, and don't bother shipping his hockey bag. He might be right back again. But that's kind of crazy. Sometimes you just teams just overthink some of this nonsense where you're dallying on the edges of your roster anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're looking for offense. Teams are looking, and he's got a little bit, and I don't know if it'll translate at the NHL level, but it does translate at the AHL level, and that's probably what teams are looking at. If we could get him cheap, and everybody wants another Daniel Sprong who could, come in cheap and get you 15, 20 goals. It's hard to do. Matt Reed did it a million years ago, and then he eventually got paid too.
Well, all I can say is, would I rather spend my winter in Bakersfield, California, or Henderson, which is near Vegas, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So
well, listen, we know how we know how bad Bakersfield is, but I got admonished for talking about how bad Bakersfield is.
Oh, darn. So
but it's warm.
Yes. So the Florida Panthers dodged a little bullet last night. Alexander Barkov got hurt late in the third period against Ottawa. But according to David Pagnotta, the fourth period, it's not a serious, significant injury, but it's something that he'll be out week to week. So, it's not season ending. It's not, something that keeps him out to the All-Star break. So I'm sure Florida is happy in the in the long term, but in the short term, they don't have a lot of depth, Bill, and they lost a lot of depth after winning the Cup. I mean, you saw, basically a diaspora of a lot of their bottom six and two of their significant defensemen in Montour and Ekman Larson. So it's going to be tough for them for a while. No,
for sure. And you win the Cup and everybody comes with their hands out, particularly their, like Verhaeghe, right? Verhaeghe coming into Florida was biggest bargain in hockey.
Oh yeah.
Right. He's far from a bargain now. And now you have to, so you're always juggling, you're always managing. And when you win the Cup too, everyone has you circled, weeks ahead of the game. And that's all. I mean, I don't know who first said it. It doesn't matter who first said it, but it still applies to this. The only thing harder than winning the Cup is repeating the next year.
Well, So everybody knows this on social media. Every time Carter Verhaeghe scores a goal or scored a goal in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I put hashtag thank you, Lou, because Carter Verhaeghe was a third round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in 2015, when it was 2015 when Lou was hired as general manager, or whatever, the first year he was hired as general manager, I think it's 2015, may have been 2016, but whatever the year was, at the opening of training camp, a piece of paper was passed out to all the reporters, and that's how Lou broke the 5-for-1 deal that sent 5 Leaf draft picks or prospects, or there were a couple players in there that were just, sort of Taylor Beck type of AHL scrubs to the Islanders for Michael Grabner. And Michael Grabner helped them by not scoring. It was 2015, by not scoring during the breakaways to help them get Austin Matthews. But in that deal was Carter Verhaeghe. And he didn't do anything with the Islanders. He went to Tampa. He played well in Tampa. He signed with Florida. And now he's a consequential player. Is he a $7 million player, Russ?
Yeah, I think he is based on his goal total. And I don't know if he would have been this player in Toronto. I think it's easy to say now. I don't think it was easy to say even 3 years ago. So listen, I mean, I think Florida has developed him and he's become a tremendous goal scorer for them. And so, yeah, I think he's worth it. $7 million doesn't get you that much anymore, to be honest.
No, but the thing is with Florida right now, okay, they've locked up Barkov, they've locked up Lundell, they re-signed Sam Reinhart, and now they've locked up Verhaeghe. You have to say though, and somebody in the chat was saying this, and they have Bobrovsky for a few more years. I don't think they're going to buy him out because he's their number one. And Spencer Knight now comes back, and he's got a few years left in his deal. They've got 2 significant unrestricted free agents after this year. One is Sam Bennett. The other one is Ekblad. I can see Ekblad. Now, he could make money anywhere, but I think he would take a little less to stay in Florida.
Yeah, I think he will.
Bennett's Darren Drager's already reporting that that's the target of Brad Treliving, the guy who drafted him in Calgary.
He needs to cool his jets, because the one thing I'll say about Florida is they've been able to retain the guys they want to retain. And let's give Bill Zito a little credit and see if he doesn't get creative here and keep Bennett there. So I wouldn't be counting on Sam Bennett hitting the market just yet.
No, I'm right, but
no, I'm not saying you. I'm saying guys like Drager.
Hitting the bongos here. About
I know.
On the another thing on the waiver wire here, Colorado maybe have learned their lesson with not playing Alexander Georgiev to death like they did early in the season because they were afraid of Ivan Prosvetov. They claimed Kaapo Kähkönen on waivers. Now the big question here is, and I think I know the reason why. Winnipeg places Kaapo Kähkönen on waivers instead of Eric Comrie. Eric Comrie in Buffalo the last 2 years was a sieve. He sucked. He was terrible. Nice guy, but couldn't stop a beach ball in Buffalo. In Winnipeg, before he left, he was good. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's good again this year. But Bill, I think he's good buddies with Connor Hellebuck, and they have a good rapport. Yeah. And if he plays well, that's sometimes more important than the best backup. So I think that's the reason why.
Oh, it really is, particularly with Hellebuck, right? I mean, given the way playoffs have gone, and if there's someone who potentially could be a guy you might turn to, it creates this weird kind of tension in the room. It just does.
No doubt.
When you have your definite number one, your definite number two, and they get along, I remember we had that right here in Philadelphia, when Steve Mason had some competition, whether it was Michael Neuvert or other guys, right? It was a little odd sometimes when you had Emery come in and he knew he was the backup. Mason had the best year of his career, so even better than his Rookie of the Year award. I think sometimes that internal dynamic with your two goalies, sometimes that ends up meaning more for the team as a whole than sometimes when you look at the stats or just their raw abilities.
All right, so let's talk about that though for a minute, Bill. But with Carolina, so they still haven't named their goalie for tonight's game, and to be honest, yes, everybody thinks it should be Kochetkov because they think they should change from Anderson. I don't know if Brind'Amour is actually going to do it, but I think with him doing this just shows the inadequacy of the goaltending in Carolina, that they had to go down to this day to try and figure out who they're starting for their first game. That's not a great sign for them this season.
This is my only criticism of Brind'Amour as a coach. It's clear to almost now. I'm not in the room. I don't know the personalities of the goaltenders. All I can say is this: I've seen Kochetkov play, and when he plays regularly, he plays pretty damn good. Freddie Anderson is a good regular season goaltender. He's had some injury issues. He had a good abbreviated regular season last year. He actually played okay in the playoffs. It wasn't his fault that they ended up losing. But I think Kochetkov is the future, and you signed him to a long-term extension. So play the damn guy, Jesus. I don't get it.
It's just a weird dynamic. Like, that's a weird dynamic in the room for goalie. Like, you don't know who the goalie is from game to game there now.
Okay, I want to bring up a few things in the chat here. Tony Soprano mentioned Timothy Liljegren. He says, when is Toronto trading the Liljegren? What a waste of cap space. Okay. First of all, Elliot Friedman reported that the Leafs are investigating a trade for Liljegren. Okay. It was not a waste of cap space to sign a right-hand shot defenseman who can skate, who had 23 points in 55 games last year, to a 2-year deal worth $3 million. Justin Hall got 3.4, and he sucks. So, I mean, a decently skilled right-handed defenseman who, I mean, right now, Craig Berube, he likes big defensemen. It sounds like right now his number 5-6 is going to be Simone Benoit and some combination of Connor Timmins and Philippe Myers, who, something
that won't last long.
No, but then they have Hakanpää. Hakanpää is coming back at the end of the month.
But he's gimpy too. The other guys get hurt all the time, and he's gimpy too.
That's why they're going to have 8 defensemen, and they're going to rotate. And I don't think Hakanpää is going to be an everyday defenseman because
he can't be. He can't.
I don't think his knee's going to allow it. But I do think he likes Myers. Myers played well in the preseason, and they need cap relief because they're going to have to bring back some of their forwards. So and they'll probably get a draft pick for Liljegren. I like Liljegren. I think he's a good player, but sometimes coaches just a player doesn't fit with the system of the coach, and Berube likes big defenseman, Bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's it's always been the case with Chief, but the league as a whole is going that way, Mike. Everything goes in cycles, and I remember 20-something years ago, if you were under 6'1", even, unless you were just a really special player, almost need not apply. And then the pendulum swung like the other way. Everybody wanted the smaller, mobile guys who move the puck and maybe some a little bit more offensive end. And then it's gone back a little bit more the old school way where they're valuing the big guys, particularly with always a view of the playoffs. And once you have a cup to your credit, as Chief has from St. Louis, you're going to get your way on, and then that's just it. The roster is going to be tailored how he wants it to be tailored.
He had Robert Bortuzzo playing on the bottom pairing the year that they won the Stanley Cup. Colton Parayko and Pietrangelo, who's a great player.
I will say this though, just so we could dovetail this, and Bill could talk about it for a minute. But every once in a while, there does become a guy who's smaller, who's good. We just saw Emil Andre got called up for the Flyers trip. We know he won't play game one. I think Tortorella does need to play him, though. You can't. I wouldn't play Eric Johnson every game. And if what we saw out of Andre in camp was good, and he's definitely stronger and feistier. So I think he's deserving of a shot, and he is a smaller guy.
He is on a team that already has Drysdale and York.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
while I think that Andre will play some games in the NHL, obviously, he'll be called for Calgary. So I think he'll be in. I think.
Would you rather have him on power play 2 or Zamula?
Personally, Andre, no, without question. But I know why Tortorella puts Zamula in over York, for example.
We get it. He doesn't hit the net. York doesn't hit the net.
That's it right there. Is that even though Zamula lacks a hard shot, but he puts it on the net. It might be a muffin, but it's on the net.
And there's room in this league for small defensemen. I mean, I saw Lane Hudson play against Toronto on Wednesday. He's extremely quick. He's smart. He's going to get muscled
up now too.
He's stronger. I mean, he's not going to be able to compete against a 6'4" guy, but I mean, I think he knows to play the angles and to not go into the corners with those guys. And he's going to he'll be limited, but he'll be effective, and his speed and his creativity will balance things out. So there is room for a smaller defenseman in the league too. Just to answer Flamester, because he said Rasmus Anderson will be a Leaf. Calgary will not trade with Treliving. Their ownership will not allow them, or if they do, they expect to be overpaid. They tried to make a trade for Tanev and Zadorov, and the cost was so prohibitive. They wanted Matthew Nyes in a first-round pick, and Treliving told them to go spit.
Well, you could do what happened with Mark Streit and the Penguins, because there's no way the Flyers would have traded him to the Penguins, but he got traded. I forget the other team, and they traded him to the Penguins. So that could happen.
That could happen, but then you burn a bridge with that general. You burn a bridge with Craig.
Who cares if you need the player? Okay. You don't care.
Well, no, but is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No. If they probably wait until he's a free agent and then sign him, but who knows? 2 more things. One, Frank Cervalli is reporting, Russ, that the New York Rangers are working on an extension with Alexis Lafreniere for 8 years at a reported $8 million per. If you're the Rangers, are you ecstatic?
You sign it tomorrow. The goal he got the other day was the goal he used to score in juniors. And look, it took him a little while to get there. Some of that's New York. Some of that's him. Some of it's the coaches. He's on his 4th coach, I think, or 3rd coach. Yeah. But you could see now the confidence is there. I've been talking about him for a couple of years, like, hey, he's going to get there, and he's really close. I think he's there now, and I think they know he's there now. And the problem is, being a former 1st overall and having this talent, if you don't give him this deal, somebody will.
Well, speaking of 1st overalls, Macklin Celebrini scored his first goal in his first game.
Did he score it? Somebody else kind of scored it, but it was a nice move.
Yeah, but there's a level of excitement in saying, we know it's going to be a bad year in San Jose, but there was a level of excitement in San Jose at that, and his family was there. So it was in San Jose. Yeah, it was in San Jose.
Yeah.
But Bill, we're going to have the debut of Mishkov now, and what's the level of excitement for Flyers fans about Mishkov?
Well, I'll put it this way. Tortorella is starting every press conference by snapping at people. Don't call him a savior. So that explains that puts it right there, right? And it's also Jet Luchenko's NHL debut. Him and Celebrini are the only two guys picked in this year's draft who made an opening night roster. Right. I don't think Luchenko.
Other than Celebrini, yeah.
So, yeah.
I know you have to say it just to be fair.
But anyway, so it's But at any rate, I mean, Michkov looks like the real deal. His playmaking is off the charts. The only thing he doesn't have is really great breakaway speed. Everything else is there. The anticipation, the hands, the passing touch, the nose for the net, the competitiveness, all of that. I'd be surprised if he doesn't become an impact player pretty quickly. That being said, I don't think he's going to put up any kind of historical numbers as a rookie or anything like that. But I think he'll come in and make an impact right off the bat. And it's actually something it's a reason to tune into the games, right? Because otherwise it's almost the same exact team the Flyers had last year.
Yeah, I mean, are they making comparisons? Because I've heard, he's the next Panarin, or he's the, I mean, I hate, or Kaprizov. I hate.
I think he's in between those two. That's what I felt, and I think Demidov is a little ahead of him. Like that's just what I think. It's, but we're splitting hairs.
Although I read a story where Demidov was the rookie of the month in the KHL in September, and now he's played 4 minutes a night the last 4 games. It's
That's
like
KHL.
Well, it's Roman Rottenberg also. I
don't.
Yeah,
I don't put too much. But Bill, the other question is my little bit of worry for Luchenko is you're on the road. Those other teams are not going to match their third lines against your third line. They're going to match their first or second, and that's going to be a tough road for him.
It is. He has to physically get quite a bit stronger. That's a big piece of it too. And honestly, I have to tell the truth. I mean, I loved his rookie camp. He did blow everybody away in rookie camp. It was looked way better than the New York Islanders prospects, even guys who were several years older. Right? He had a really good first game of the preseason, and after that, kind of held his own. He didn't really. Actually, he didn't really break the door down, as the saying goes, which is usually the standard for an 18-year-old to play in the NHL. You don't draft a kid where you drafted him with the hopes of making him a third-line checking center for the long haul. He still has a lot of things he has to work on. He had just 20 goals in his draft year as a first-line center. Very, very good playmaker. I think right now he could go in the NHL and as a rookie get you 20 something assists.
No, he would do that for sure.
Right. But and then in the future, I could see him being a 35-40 assist guy. I mean,
what the scary thing about his goals is, and this shocked me because he was only shooting. Thanks to Instat preseason, I have like all these other stats that sometimes aren't out there. 2.2 shots per game. You know what's funny? With Guelph last year, that was about his shot totals, 2 or 3 a game, but they went in.
Yeah, well,
I mean, very high.
For a guy who's drafted in the top half of the first round as an offensive-minded center, right? I mean, he's a complete player, right? Yeah. But as a guy you're hoping to develop as a top 6 guy,
right?
20 goals your draft year is not a lot. I mean,
no,
he's a setup guy.
I mean, what did Pavel Brendel get? Like 40 something?
Yeah. I mean, well, Pavel Brendel, yeah. Talk about not knowing who Nelson Mandela was. When 9/11 happened, the media was going around the locker room asking player reactions, whether they're from Europe, North, whatever. Just at a human level, everybody, of course, had the same crestfallen look, the same just shocked expression, and just expressing their horror, and all and Pavel goes, "What, that airplane thing?"
I have a quick one of Pavel Brendel. When he got sent back from the Flyers to the Phantoms, I was covering a game, and I just had noticed in that game he just wasn't moving his feet, and that happened a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so I was going to go up to him and ask him that, and I started to ask the question, and he goes, "You know what? I'm done. I'm retiring." And I went, "Okay, Pavel, good seeing you. Take care." If it was the age of Twitter, I could have at least tweeted Pavel Brendel has retired, and Flyers fans would have rejoiced.
I'm not trying to make this all about Pavel Brendel. Real quick, Pavel Brendel story also. People who don't know John LeClair don't know that John actually has a pretty darn good dry sense of humor. When Brendel and Johnny were both on the Flyers, there was a game. Flyers are losing 3-1, and LeClair says on the bench, "We just need to pick up on Pavel's energy, and we'll be okay." And everybody looks down the bench, and Pavel's sitting there, half falling asleep. That's Pavel Brendel.
Just to play homage to Off the Post, we'll end the show with a food take.
All right.
This was sent in our group chat. This is apparently now being offered at the KeyBank Center to very hungry patrons. I'll just read the ingredients here: 4 burger patties, brisket, bacon, jalapeno poppers, boom boom sauce, whatever the hell that is, ancho barbecue. I don't know if that's Anchor barbecue. Maybe it's a type of barbecue.
It's
okay.
not.
If it is, then that sauce is murder. Served on 2 pepper jack grilled cheese sandwiches.
Wow, jeez. Well, that's a heart attack waiting to happen on the spot. But
that's worse than like for Manny's. You could eat it once and say, "All right, I did it."
Yeah.
That's worse. I'll tell you though, at the Flyers event, the best bite that I had was a Korean barbecue chicken with a potato waffle. The potato waffle was amazing. Like this thing was it was such a surprise. I ate 2 of them.
There's
just little bites. Huh?
There is such a thing as overkill. I mean,
this bite. If you had this,
no, not that. The Dominator. I mean,
the Dominator. Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, it's like if it's truly called the Dominator, I'm sure that it would attack a sports reporter like myself, like the Dominator did. But anyway, all right, but in different ways. I would have to drink like about 6 Alka-Seltzer after taking 2 bites of that thing. But anyway, all right. We'll be back on Monday for another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Bill Meltzer, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.